But me, your man, Louis T. Welcome to Wildcard Weekend Overtime. Seahawks, Eagles. That was very anticlimactic. It went even down to the same exact score that we had in the regular season game, 17-9. Everyone expected the Eagles to lose. They did what we expected them to do. It just didn't happen the way that we thought it was going to happen, with Carson Wentz leading the attack. That's such a frustrating situation in Philadelphia. We'll get to that here in a second. And if you're out there and you're watching this, we can talk about the Saints game as well. There was so much more that I wanted to talk about with that game, but kind of ran up against the Eagles game, and I was having technical difficulties. Hopefully we've gotten that straightened out. But in any event, the Seahawks did what they were supposed to do. They went on the road, beat the Philadelphia Eagles, a depleted Eagles football team that was just lucky to be in the postseason. Honestly speaking, I'm so glad Dallas didn't get in, because I think they would have beaten Seattle. They would have been a much tougher test for the Seahawks. And honestly speaking, with the way the Seahawks have been playing, with all the injuries that they have, Dallas might have been able to beat them. So I'm glad that Dallas didn't get in, and that the Eagles did, and that the Seahawks did what they were supposed to do. I don't know if I've ever seen a playoffs where all of the lower seeded teams won the game. Now, this wasn't really a true 4-5 matchup that we respected, but I don't care. We're going to have all of the lower seeded teams advancing. All right. And well, I take that back. Buffalo didn't beat the Houston Texans, but it feels like all of the lower seeded teams advance, because honestly speaking, and I get it, Deshaun Watson is better than Josh Allen. So that probably in effect makes the Houston Texans a better team than the Buffalo Bills. But for my money, I think Buffalo as an entire team, as a collective unit and group, they're better than Houston, if you ask me. I thought they were the better team in that game, and they just didn't make enough plays. They had that game and they let it slip through their fingers. But Tennessee, lower seeded team. Minnesota, obviously lower seeded team. The 2 6 seeds, I can't recall it. And look, every time I do this, someone will tell me, oh, it happened 3 years ago. So I'm going to say this, and I'm probably going to be proven wrong, but I can't remember the last time both 6 seeds won in Wild Card Weekend. I can't remember the last time that happened. It feels like forever. It feels like never. Obviously, it's happened before, if I had to guess. There's been 100 years of the NFL. They've had this playoff format for probably every bit of 30, 40 years. I'm pretty sure that's happened at least once more. I just can't remember the last time it has happened. And again, someone will tell me, oh, it happened 2 years ago. Oh, it happened 3 years ago. Remember the time? Oh, yeah, you're right. But this game wasn't a surprise. And I really don't have a lot to say about this game, to be honest with you, but I'll give you what I got. So the Seahawks win this game 17-9. I do have one huge takeaway from this game, and that is DK Metcalf. I've already issued a 00 to him, so I'm not going to do that here. I've already done that. I've already said sorry. I've already apologized for the disrespect. And this guy just continues to go out and get better and better. And for all the people that said that this guy was a top 10 pick, this guy was a first round pick, for all of the prognosticators and the draft beatniks that said this guy's talent is just too good to pass on, and I laughed and mocked them, you were right. I was wrong. This guy is a stud. And you know what? I'm not going to back down from this portion of what I said about him. I said, look, this guy's talented. He's Terrell Owens. I just said that it's going to take him time to get there. But you know what sped up the process? And I said this on draft day, the second day of the draft when he was selected. Where he was drafted sped this process up. I said he couldn't have been drafted by a better team, because we said, well, not a great route runner. Well, guess what? He doesn't have to run great routes in Seattle. When you run an off-schedule shit with Russell Wilson on just about every 3 pass plays, Russell Wilson is scrambling out of the pocket and you're breaking your route off and it's going schoolyard, backyard football. So he couldn't have landed in a better spot. All right. It's 9 balls. It's schoolyard football. It's catch this slant, make something happen. It's pretty simple in Seattle. Now, they're every week they're expanding what he does. And every week he seems to be getting better and better. That last third down catch, that's what I wanted to see from him at Ole Miss that I didn't see. You know who I saw that from? His teammate that also had a hell of a rookie season, and A.J. Brown, who's still playing, coincidentally enough, in Tennessee. And if you ask me, the best rookie wide receiver this season was A.J. Brown. Well, not too far behind him, DK Metcalf. So those two Ole Miss boys that we were talking about, the NWO wide receivers that we were all lauding and praising all college football season last year before the injuries, they're showing up and they're showing out. And that catch at the end where he goes up, climbs the ladder, and snatches it out of the air, that's what I wanted to see from him that I didn't see from him at Ole Miss. At Ole Miss, I saw a steady diet of hitches, and it wasn't his fault. That was just the offense he was in. Hitches, slants, and go balls. And he made plays, but when it was tough, contested coverage, I didn't see him go up and get the football like A.J. Brown was doing. Well, that catch right there is what I wanted to see from him. I would have given him a higher grade had I seen more of those in college. But there just wasn't enough tape. And the tape that I did see, it wasn't great. But that's nor here nor there. The bottom line is he's here now. He's in the perfect place for him and his skill set at this very moment. And he's only going to get better. 7 catches, $160, both career highs for him. The dude is quickly turning into a menace. All right, a stud right before our very eyes. And he's the perfect complement. He's everything that Lockett isn't, okay? And Lockett's a hell of a receiver. He's got great rapport with Russell Wilson, but he's everything Tyler Lockett isn't. Tyler Lockett isn't 6'4". He's not 230 pounds. He's not physically imposing. Tyler Lockett's small, he's quick, and he's shifty. None of those things are DK Metcalf. He's not shifty. He's not quick. He's not small. He's big, he's fast, and he's strong as hell. And so it's the perfect contrast to one another because it's the best of both worlds. If I need a quick in and out guy out of a break, get me a conversion on a third down, I go to Tyler Lockett. If I'm looking to end the game because they're playing man-to-man and they think foolishly that Jalen Mills can run one-on-one with him, we'll run it, a go ball to him and he'll go get it. Or if you want Avonte Maddox to get smoked in zone coverage because we're blitzing, be my guest. Whatever you want, you can get it. So I think it's a great situation and a setup for Russell Wilson. I actually love Jacob Hollister as well. I think he's really good, underrated pass catching tight end, and that's another weapon at the disposal of Russell Wilson. And then you sprinkle in some of the ancillary parts, Brown here and this guy Moore over here and, this other tight end over there and sprinkle a little Marshawn Lynch, beast mode, and some Travis Homer over here. And all of a sudden, you got the makings of a Seattle Seahawks offense that could do just enough to get them by. And that's what they did in this football game. It wasn't pretty, but you know what it was? It was gritty, and it was a win. They weren't at full strength. They probably won't be for the remainder of the season, but they had guys like Mike Iupati out in this game. He'll probably be able to play next week. You just survive and advance. That's what the name of the game is in the postseason. We don't worry about the injuries that you incur in this game or guys that didn't. You just survive and then we'll worry about licking our wounds afterwards. All right. The Minnesota Vikings, you know what? Their corner, Xavier Rhodes, may not be able to play next week. But you know what? You survive this week. We'll figure out what the hell's wrong with him after the game. He might have broken his clavicle for all we know. He could have a crack in his shoulder blade. We don't know what the hell's wrong with him, but he finished the game. And we'll figure it out later. And he may not be able to play, and he may need surgery, all that good stuff. It's what you do in playoff football. And the Seahawks, they survived, and they advanced. And so they got it done there on the defensive side. Bobby Wagner, so good. And there was a little throw, a pass out to the flats to Boston Scott. And, Boston Scott's one of these jittery. I told you he's Darren Sproles 1.5. He's not quite 2.0, all right? But he's 1.5, Darren Sproles. And so he's out in the flats, and you're like, man, this could be a little trouble for him. It's shifty, jitterbug type running back out of the backfield. He's been really doing some work for the Eagles since about week 15 at the Giants on a Monday night. And all of a sudden, or week 14, I think that game was, at the Giants on a Monday night, or at home, on a Monday night. But, you're thinking to yourself, he might be able to shake this dude. And what does Bobby Wagner do? Clean his ass up in the flats. No problems. Didn't need help. None of that. And see, so he's the leader of this defense. I think Quandre Diggs, when he's in the lineup, he just makes a big difference back in the back end of that defense. They're a totally different unit when Quandre Diggs is back there. It's like he completes that secondary. They didn't have him for the first half of the season. Their secondary was suspect as hell. They get Quandre Diggs. He immediately makes an impact. He misses a couple of games. They struggle back there. He comes back, and voila. It's like he never left. And so he changes things in the back end of that defense. And then Clowney. Look, he's not healthy, and he's still a menace. He's still a problem. And you saw it today. I thought Clowney was exceptional. Similar to that 49ers game that they won on a Monday night where I said, look, don't look at the numbers. Those are misleading. When you look at Clowney's numbers, and people always talk about the lack of sack production from Clowney, and I'm like, you aren't watching Jadeveon Clowney then, because the sack numbers don't tell the story about what he does and how he impacts the game. He gets pressures. He blows up run plays. I think that's probably the biggest thing you get from Clowney is the pressures and his ability to just disrupt an offense, period. Whether it's a pass or run, he may not get to the quarterback. He may not hit home, but his disruptive nature just throws off the entire timing of an offense. Instead of 2nd and 7 because you got 3 on first down, it's now 2nd and 10 because Clowney bust through and made a tackle for no gain. And now it's 2nd and 10, and it just changes the way you run your offense. Instead of on that 2nd and 10, you decide to run it, and Clowney blows that up, and now it's a 1-yard gain. Now it's 3rd and 9, and now you got to pass, and now we know it's a pass. So Clowney was exceptional in this game. I thought Wagner was outstanding as well. And then I thought as a whole, this is a banged up, depleted Eagles football team. And then Wentz left the game. You didn't account for that going into the game. He gets injured. At that point, you have to say to yourself, don't let Miles Sanders go off. At that point, don't let Miles Sanders or Boston Scott or either of the tight ends hurt us. All right? Keep everything in front of us. Nothing cheap, nothing deep. If they're going to beat us, make Josh McCown take them on a 13-play, 77-yard drive. If he can do that, you tip your cap and you say you got us. But don't let somebody get free. Don't have a blown coverage or anything because they can't score. They can't do it. So don't give anything stupid up. That's why those Trey Flower pass interferences, I wasn't that mad because I'm like, I'd much rather you PI, even though the second one was a little questionable. I thought it was pass interference. But either way, I'm fine with that. Just don't let anybody catch something and get in the end zone. All right? Because once they get down there, they're still going to have trouble. They got Josh McCown in the game. It's not Wentz. So they did what they needed to do. Again, it wasn't pretty, but it was gritty. And most importantly, it was a dub. Big game from DK Metcalf. Russell Wilson, steady Eddie at the quarterback position. I don't know if you'll find a much more composed quarterback than Russell Wilson. How about that 3rd down to end the game? Like, they dropped back like it was 3rd down in the 3rd quarter. I mean, the confidence that they have in Russell Wilson to and what a throw. He could have thrown it out there a little bit more. DK could have run under it and probably scored, but just the throw, the catch, everything, that confidence that you have in Russell Wilson with the game on the line to throw it, you incomplete that. Now the Eagles have 2 timeouts and about a minute and 40 seconds left. Instead, it's a catch and it's ball game. I mean, that's Russell Wilson for you folks. All he does is win, 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 no matter what, as they advance to the divisional round where they'll take on the Green Bay Packers, a place where the Seahawks have struggled. With Russell Wilson at quarterback, they have not had success in Green Bay against the Packers, but that should be a fun contest. Those teams have played some really dramatic games against one another. We all remember the game with the replacement officials on the Hail Mary in the end zone. We all remember the onside kick that wasn't, that Green Bay was supposed to recover. They didn't. The Seahawks get it and end up winning that game, I believe, in overtime to get to the Super Bowl. So we all remember some of these classic matchups between these two teams. Hopefully we get another one next week. As far as the Eagles are concerned, again, not much to say here. The biggest thing for me here is the Wentz injury. The guy just can't stay healthy. That's the biggest thing with him is he finally got to the postseason. He was finally the reason the Eagles made it to the postseason. All the other years, he helped, but it was the Nicholas Foles show. This year, they got to the postseason because he played clutch ball down the stretch. He made all the plays. He made all the throws. He made all the right decisions. He pressed all the right buttons. He was the reason they got to 9-7 and won the NFC East. And so now he's finally getting a chance to put a stamp on his legacy in Philadelphia and third possession of the game, third possession of the game, just like that, he's gone. And it's unfortunate. He can't help that. He can't help that, but it's just unfortunate that if you're the Philadelphia Eagles, you have to have. And if I'm the Eagles, in this climate that you're in, with all of these quarterbacks that are going to be free agents that are really good, I'd go out and I'd overspend for an Andy Dalton. Okay? I'd go out, I'd overspend for a Marcus Mariota. Because I know, I'm not guessing, I know Carson Wentz is going to get hurt at some point. At some point, Wentz is going to get hurt. It's going to be his rib, it's going to be his shoulder, it's going to be his knee, it's going to be a concussion. Something's going to happen to Carson Wentz at some point during the course of the year. And I'm going to need my backup to come in and not play a game or two, probably more like 4 games. Maybe even finish out the season as we've seen with him in the past. So if I'm the Eagles, it's not good enough to have Nate Sudfeld or Josh McCown, who I actually like, but at 40 years old, there's a limitation on what he provides you. And oh, by the way, he was 40 years old making his playoff debut. Unreal that he's been in the league for like 29 years and he's never played in a playoff game. So the guy knows nothing about winning, and you put him in that spot, that's a tough position to be in. But if I'm the Eagles, I'm telling you what I would do. I would go out and I would get me an ex-starter, and I would tell him what the situation is, and he could decide to come here or not. But I would throw some money at him that he may not be able to get from anybody else. And I know you don't want to overpay the position. You're already paying Wentz a boatload of money. My thing is, you can never pay for a chance to win a chip. And the way you were playing defense, all right, I know you're shuffling the secondary and you're down to guys that you would prefer not to have out there, but at the end of the day, the defense has been playing lights out. And I get it. It was the NFC East down the stretch. But this was Seattle, and they were banged up, and you still had a chance. Down the field, right at the 2-minute warning, 4th down, 3 timeouts left, you're down 1 score. You had a shot. And if Wentz plays this game, maybe it's a different outcome. I don't know. Maybe Seattle handles the game differently. Maybe you handle the game differently. Either way, if you had a different quarterback in there, you might have had a shot. So if I'm the Eagles, that's something that I consider this offseason. Now, I don't know if you're going to be able to convince an Andy Dalton that he's no longer a starter in this league. I don't know if you're able to convince Marcus Mariota that he can't get an opportunity to start somewhere else. Come here in Philadelphia and back up Carson Wentz. And I don't know what that would do to Carson Wentz's psyche. He's a guy that seems like he can be a little fragile already with the whole Nicholas Foles situation that transpired the last 2 years. He could probably be mentally fragile. And you don't want to play with his psyche back there by going and getting a guy that has been a starter in the league and telling him, hey, it's your job. You have nothing to worry about. But having a guy that if he starts stinking it up, the crowd, and we know the Philly crowd can be unforgiving at times. They was like, hey, man, get Wentz's ass out of here and put Mariota in the game. So I don't know if you want to do that, but that's something to consider. That's all I'm saying. But in this particular game, Fletcher Cox was a man beast. If you're a Redskins fan and you're out there and you're in the chat right now and you watch this game, that's what a first-round pick defensive tackle is supposed to look like. That's how they're supposed to impact the game. He was unblockable in this game, was Fletcher Cox. He was a nuisance up front. They had no answers. Poor Joey Hunt, who's like 295 pounds. Fletcher Cox was flicking him around like a booger in this game, okay? They had no answers up front for Fletcher Cox. That's what a first-round defensive tackle is supposed to do. In any event, and I don't want to sidebar and digress off into something else. He was outstanding in this game. And to me, honestly, the Eagles, defensively, they gave this team a chance to win. I thought that even though all these injuries had taken place and all of the things that they had going on offense were going to be a real hindrance to them having a real shot in this game, I thought that this thing, or excuse me, for the Seahawks, all the injuries that they've had and all the things that they have going on, that they've been struggling a little bit on offense. We saw them sputter a bit in that first half, really for 3 quarters versus the 49ers, and then all of a sudden woke up late in that game. I thought that they could, put some things together against this Eagles defense and really kind of run away with this thing and create some distance, and they never were able to do that. And hats off to the Eagles defensively for that, not allowing this thing to get out of control and really giving the Eagles offense every opportunity to have a chance in this football game. But it's amazing that this team was able to get to where they were. And I don't care that you had to play the NFC East down the stretch. With all the injuries to the secondary, to all the injuries to the offense, the fact that you were even in this football game speaks volumes. This is a hell of a coaching job by Doug Peterson. Say what you want about Doug Peterson. Say what you want about this Eagles football team. The fact that they were even in this game, hats off to them. Offensively, the Wentz injury pretty much spelled the end of the road for you in this game. And you didn't want to advance with Wentz being potentially out next week. I mean, it needed to end here. But like I said, there are some things that you learned with all these injuries. You got some guys that stepped up and can help you moving forward. And I thought Dallas Goedert had a big game, and he's continuing to evolve. I loved him coming out of South Dakota State, and he's starting to show the things that I thought made him a fringe first, early second, and he ended up being a mid-second round pick. You traded up in front of the Cowboys to make sure that they didn't get their hands on him. And he's showing everything that I thought he was capable of. And if you get a healthy Ertz, those two at the tight end position are really a mismatch nightmare, to be honest. So he's evolving. You found something in Boston Scott. I love Miles Sanders and what he brings to the table. I think you found something in Greg Ward moving forward. So there's some bright spots with this football team. Even in defeat and even with all the injuries, you learned some things about some of the guys that you have on this roster. One of the guys that I was hoping would step up was J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, and it just never happened. He's a rookie. I'm not going to kill him for that. Again, everybody matures at a different rate. You look across the field, you see what DK Metcalf's doing, and you say to yourself, well, why isn't JJ doing that? Because they're not the same player, and maybe JJ, his light bulb comes on next year. Maybe it comes on in year 3. That's the thing about these rookies is that you just don't know. You don't know when it's going to happen. You just got to stay tuned. And you just got to keep plugging away. You got to keep putting in energy and effort into these guys and hope that they live up to their draft billing. And we'll see what happens with him. But you could have used his production. You could have used him stepping up. Same thing with the Patriots and N'Keal Harry. They could have used him coming along a little bit faster, but when you don't play the first 10 games of the season, it's hard to ask a guy to just jump in there and start producing. And you can say the same thing about J.J. Arcega-Whiteside. He's been active, but he hasn't had a huge role this season for the Philadelphia Eagles. So Seahawks get the win. Let's get to your comments and talk about this game. Cody _1804 says, my Packers will face the Seahawks in Lambeau. Indeed, they will. Niners fan says, how scared should we be of the Vikings? I'm terrified of Kirk shredding our secondary, but I also know that our pass rush can be disruptive and shut down their passing attack. I think that you just hit the nail on the head. If you can get to Kirk and frustrate him and fluster him early in the game, you've got him right where you want him. If Kirk is, and so let me walk you back a step. If you really want to disrupt the game, stop Dalvin Cook first. If they are able to run the football, it's going to set everything else up. I'm not telling you anything you don't already know because your offense is set up the exact same way. And it's really two teams that kind of are mirrors of one another. They're running the same offense that you run. All right? They're running the same offense with the quarterback that they'd like to have. You guys wanted Kirk Cousins. And the Redskins were just too stupid to trade away Kirk Cousins for a first-round pick because our front office with dumbass Bruce Allen didn't want to trade Kirk Cousins to Kyle Shanahan because he didn't want to do business with Kyle. So that prompted you to go and get Jimmy Garoppolo. So it's really, you're looking in the mirror. You want to run the football, they want to run the football. You want to run play action fake, they want to run play action fake. They've got a tight end they want to get the football to. You've got a tight end that you want to get the football to. They got guys on the outside that can hurt you. You got guys on the outside that can hurt them. So it's really similar. Where the biggest difference lies is I think your defense is better than theirs. And I think you can affect the game by stopping the run. And this is one of those games where I feel like not having DJ Jones can actually hurt you. You haven't really felt the presence or lack thereof of DJ Jones not being in the lineup. I think this is one of those games where not having DJ Jones may actually show up. We'll see what happens. But yes, you should be afraid of the Vikings because they're going with that same mentality that the Eagles had the year they won the Super Bowl, where they were wearing a dog mask because they were the underdog and no one was giving them a shot because they had Nicholas Foles at quarterback. Nobody's giving the Vikings a shot. They're already a touchdown underdog. The same shit that happened to them last week where nobody gave them a shot is already happening this week, and the lines just came out. They're going to use that motivation, and they're going to go with that same approach. Nobody's giving us a chance. Nobody believes but anybody, but only guys in this locker room but us. So you got to guard against all of that stuff. Should be interesting. Got a super chat. I'm going to go ahead and take that. From my man Redskins 007 Moo. Says, HTTR, making moves. Let's go. Appreciate the super chat. Redskins 007 Moo. Appreciate that greatly. Kyle Little says, so Carson Wentz doesn't get injured the whole regular season, but his first playoff game, he gets knocked out of the game in the first half. Unbelievable. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. I mean, it was crazy because all season long, I was waiting for him to get injured, and it didn't happen. And I said, you know what? Good for you, Carson, man. Good for you staying healthy. And then, as you mentioned, the very first quarter, he's in the playoffs. His first playoff game, he's excited. He was the reason they were there. And just like that, he's done. Unreal. Niners fan says, if we beat many, I'd much rather face the Packers than the Seahawks for a third time. Niners fan says, we went 1-3 on my wild card predictions. Just goes to show you that anything can happen once you get into the dance. As I've said to you a million times, once you get that ticket and you get inside and they close those doors, it's pure mayhem. Nothing is guaranteed to, you can throw the seeds out of the window. The only thing a seed is good for is home field advantage. And as we saw this weekend, you can take your home field advantage if you don't know what to do with it and shove it, okay? Because the Texans almost lost at home. The Patriots did lose at home. So did the Saints. And so did the Philadelphia Eagles. So if you don't know what to do with that home field advantage, you can take that and you can shove it. So I went 1-3 as well. I was 0-3 going into that final game. I had no doubts that the Seahawks were going to take care of business, but it was a lot closer than I thought it was going to be. I didn't expect it to be the exact same identical score that it was the first time around. Got another super chat, so I'm going to go ahead and take that. And it's from Big Blue Rising, and he says, all the wild card games were exciting. Liking what I'm seeing so far, Lou. Which one stood out to you the most? If you're talking shock value, the one that stood out to me the most was the one we saw earlier today. Vikings going to New Orleans and winning. I didn't anticipate that. I did not anticipate the Vikings going into New Orleans and coming out with a victory. I didn't. After the first 3 possessions of the game, I thought it could happen. But going into the game, no way you could have gotten me to think that this team, this Saints team that had been playing good ball to finish up the season, was going to allow the Vikings to waltz into the dome and come out with the victory. But if you're talking about what was the most entertaining game, it was the first game of the playoffs with the Texans and the Bills. It was just crazy. It was back and forth. It was insane. If you're talking about what was the most satisfying to watch, it was the Patriots game. So there were emotions that were different for every single game. This game, oh, okay, this is what I expected. So this was expected. The game earlier today, that was shock. The game before that, which was the Patriots game, that was satisfying. And the game before that was exciting in the Bills and Texans. So the one that stood out to me the most, though, was the Vikings game, the Vikings and the Saints, because I just didn't see that coming. I thought the Patriots could lose. I told you that on the podcast. I didn't pick them to lose because I didn't want to eat Patriots crow. I told you it's the worst kind of crow you can eat. However, I told you that it was very possible. This is not the same Patriots that we have come to know and love, and for most of you, hate. So I knew that was possible. Anyway, thanks for the super chat, Big Blue Rising, and Redskins 007 Moo. As we get back to the comment section, Cody 18 underscore 1804 says, I feel much more comfortable facing the Seahawks than the Saints. I know it will be a fight, but I think we can win. I agree with you. I think the Vikings just did everybody a favor because I think the team that the San Francisco 49ers didn't want to see, I think the team that the Green Bay Packers didn't want to see was the Saints. I think everyone breathed a sigh of relief today. They exhaled when they saw the Saints were eliminated because everyone's path to the Super Bowl just got a lot easier. And I know you don't like looking at other, teams and saying, oh, that team is the one I got to worry about, especially when you're the 49ers and you're the number 1 seed. But I'm going to be honest with you. The team that I felt most confident saying could go into San Francisco and win was New Orleans. Now they're not around. So we'll see what happens. I can also tell you this. They don't want to see Seattle again. They don't. Anytime it's family business, third time around, it's tough. So there's that as well. Niners fan says, the last time 2 6 seeds won on Wildcard weekend was 2015 to 2016 when the Seahawks beat the Vikings and the Steelers beat the Bengals. So that was what, 5 years ago maybe? Again, a lot more recent than I thought. But again, doesn't happen very often. Thank you for that, Niners fan. Silver V says, it's no country for old men in these playoffs. First Brady, then Breeze. Russell is going to take Rodgers out next. You're right. It's no country for old men. And I just love it in the AFC. When you look up and it's Watson, it's Mahomes, it's Tannehill, and Lamar Jackson. It's no country for old men, man. Get those old farts out of here and in with the new, man. So let's pass that baton. Let's pass that torch. All right? So in the NFC, we're going to see what happens. Kirk isn't a spring chicken, but he isn't old either. All right? Jimmy Garoppolo, Aaron Rodgers is the old man in the group. All right? He's the grizzled old veteran. And then you have the Russell Wilson-led Seattle Seahawks. And you guess he's right in that same boat with Kirk Cousins because they came in the same draft. So Niners fan says, I keep hearing about how elite Marshawn Lattimore is, but he got smoked by Thielen today. That pass that he got beat on, he was right there, and I'm going to tell you exactly what happened. He looked back for the football. And when he looked back for the football, he lost track of where Thielen was. He went to lean on Thielen, all right? He went to put his weight on Thielen to try to box him out from the football. And what Thielen did was he came back to the football. So what guys like to do is they like to use the sideline and then they like to rail, what they like to call rail the wide receiver. And that's when you kind of put your arm on them, put your body weight on them and kind of feel where they are. And he wasn't there. And he kind of fell back. If you see him, he falls back a little bit and Thielen goes right to the football. And then after the play, you see him kind of knelt over like, God damn it. I misplayed that. And he did. He was right there. I love Marshawn Lattimore. He's a competitor. But he got beat a couple of times. But it happens to the best of them. There is not a single corner in this league that doesn't get beat. You know, we got really good corners in this league. Stephon Gilmore gets beat. All right? I saw my guy in Washington, Terry McLaurin, bless him. Okay? So guys get beat in this league. All right? Tre'Davious White had his hands full in Houston. All right? It happens. Happens. And Thielen, let's not act like Thielen isn't one of the better receivers in his league, okay? Adam Thielen is no slouch. It's not like he was out there getting roasted by Greg Ward. It was Adam Thielen. Either one of those Viking receivers, you got to respect them. Let's see. Niners fan says, I'm so happy for Kirk Cousins. I knew he was capable of getting it done, but I just don't hope he doesn't carry this momentum to Santa Clara next week. I was so happy. Did you see the moment in the locker room after? I was so juiced for that, man, because Kirk deserves it, man. All of the BS he went through in Washington and how they tried to drag him through the mud and how the Redskins fans, a lot of them, not all of them, there were a lot of us who thought that he should still be in Washington. But there are a lot of Redskins fans that are delusional, you know, that think that this organization deserved better. Really? When's the last time we had a franchise quarterback? When you're so willy-nilly with Kirk and you're so willing to go out back into the quarterback wilderness where we've been for damn near 30 years, you're willing to go back into that? And I was just so satisfied. It was so gratifying. And look, he hasn't won anything, but to get that monkey off of his back, to be able to say, won a playoff game, check that box, did it on the road, in one of the most hostile environments in all of the NFL, to be able to do that, to check those boxes off, to get rid of that narrative, it was really refreshing. And then to see the emotion in the locker room, for him to say, I got 3 words, you like that? Oh, man, classic stuff. I wish it was happening with the Redskins and in a burgundy and gold uniform instead of in a purple uniform. But it is what it is, man. I'm happy for Kirk either way. Niners fan says, this season has been terrific so far. So many great regular season games and a fantastic wild card weekend. What did I talk about on my podcast? I talked about it again last week. For those of you who haven't checked it out, what are you waiting on? I did it live on YouTube. 67th installment of the Louis T Network podcast. I talked about it. This season of the NFL over-delivered. I talked about I had a whole segment on my podcast about a month and a half ago where I talked about the NFL over-delivering this season. This has been a fantastic year, and Wildcard weekend was just a carryover from what was a magnificent NFL season. I mean, the 100th year delivered. This NFL 100th season lived up to its billing. You put all of this into the 100th year, all these things they did for the anniversary, and the actual season itself has over-delivered. Cloud says, bruh, I'm not even mad. Our squad has been hampered this entire season. It is what it is. You have no reason to be upset. The fact that you were able to make it to the postseason with a mass unit speaks volumes to the coaching job that Doug Peterson did this year. And frankly, it speaks volumes to the way that Carson Wentz was able to galvanize this team down the stretch. So Kyle Little says, Ryan Tannehill beat Tom Brady in New England, and First Cousins beat Drew Brees, and he meant Kirk Cousins, beats First Cousins, beats Drew Brees in New Orleans. Welcome to 2020. It's a new decade. It's a new decade. Cloud says, how we better keep every pick and get some youth for this team, especially at wide receiver. That's the problem when teams are so willing to just mortgage the future to win now. I'm all for winning now. I'm all for pushing the chips to the center of the table, but there has to be a time where you say, all right, man, I got to make sure that the cupboard isn't completely bare. The Rams have did a poor job of keeping the cupboard stocked. They've really just pushed their chips to the center of the table. The Eagles, I'm a little bit more lenient on them because they want a chip. They want a chip. So you can do whatever the hell you want. You can do whatever you like. Yeah, you want a chip. But the Rams, they're chasing one. And in the pursuit of one, they've mortgaged first-round picks, second-round picks. They've done whatever they thought was necessary. And it could really hurt them. If they don't win a championship in the next 3 years, they could look up and say, man, we got old fast. And the reason, if they don't do damage in the 3rd through 7th rounds, they're going to look up and say, man, we got bad and old quick, because they mortgaged their future and they're not saving their picks. And the Eagles, you could say the same thing, trading away first rounders and second rounders and things of that nature. This kind of season brings that into focus when you have all these injuries and you don't have a bunch of young guys that you have confidence in that can step in and help. That's when it kind of brings, the lack of depth into focus. And that's when you start saying to yourself, hey, we got to do a better job in the draft. And maybe, holding on to our first and second round picks isn't that bad of an idea. Derek B says, remember on draft night when you hoped that the Redskins didn't trade back into the first round to draft DK? Imagine DK across from Terry McLaurin. It would be nice. I don't know if he would be playing as good as he's playing now. Again, like I said, he's in the perfect place for him to develop and mature in the right manner. You stick him on the wrong team, and he would have had 317 yards receiving on just 27 catches, and we wouldn't be having this conversation. But because he is on the perfect squad for his skill set at this very moment in Seattle, all right, the only other team he might have been able to be on right now and been putting up the numbers that he's putting up is Baltimore. With Lamar Jackson's off-schedule nature and the things that he's done this season, I can't think of many other teams you put DK Metcalf on and you just say, oh, he's going to have these numbers. He's going to be playing out of his gourd. Maybe Tennessee, because Ryan Tannehill's been playing off-schedule and doing a hell of a job of delivering the football to guys. But DK has been special, but I think a lot of it, too, has to do with where he is. And I definitely would not have signed off on the Redskins trading into the first round for him. But if he would have been doing this, it would have been excellent. But I mean, hell, we couldn't even get Terry to 1,000 yards. All right. So it is what it is. But yes, hindsight is 2020. If DK and Terry are across from one another right now with Dwayne Haskins at quarterback, it would be a lot of fun to watch. But I don't have revisionist history. I'm not upset about that. I think he's in the perfect spot. Cloud says Clowney should have gotten pieced for that helmet hit. Nah. I mean, hell, in the moment, did you even know it happened? Like, it wasn't one of those egregious missed calls where you're like, oh, man, how did they miss that one? You know, we didn't even know it happened in the moment. Wentz got up. He played another snap or two. And we went a whole Seahawks possession not knowing that Wentz was hurt until we started seeing him walk. And I thought that the NBC guys did a poor job of relaying this information because Chris Collinsworth tried to act like he knew the entire time. Oh, yeah, Wentz was in the blue tent. Well, damn, you didn't tell us that shit. We didn't know his ass was walking off the field until we saw him with the training staff walking towards the locker room. We didn't even know anything was wrong. That should have been reported to us 10 minutes ago when he first saw him going into the blue tent. Like, wait a minute. Hey, Michelle, can you find out what's good with Wentz? Uh-oh, he's going into the tent. We didn't even know. So I don't have a problem with it because we didn't even know anything was wrong. Derek B says, the Wentz is cursed by the ghost of Nick Foles. Eagles fans wish they still had BDN. Excuse me. Niners fan says, does Breeze retire after this year? Absolutely not. Nobody wants to go out with a sour taste in their mouth, especially when they feel like they still can do it at a high level. Breeze was still good this season. Brady was good enough this season. Neither one of those guys are going anywhere. Cloud says, I'm not liking JJ right now. I'll give him some time, but Howie's track record drafting receivers isn't good. We'll see what happens. You know, it's young, it's early, you know, and you got to give these guys time. But, you know, a lot of times, especially with receivers, you can tell early on if they have it or they don't. But I am more inclined to give a guy opportunities to prove that he can't do it. And I just want to see more. You know, everybody, again, doesn't mature at the same rate. He might not have been healthy this year. You know, the offense might have been a little bit more from, again, at Stanford, he didn't do anything but just post guys up and go up and get the football. Like, it wasn't really that complex at Stanford. You get here and there's all these moving parts. Give him some time. His head might have been spinning in his rookie season. Niners fan says, Miles Sanders has to catch that pass on 4th and 4. Unacceptable drop. It wasn't the easiest pass to catch, but a guy with his skill set in that particular position, you'd like to see him catch that football. I agree, but at the end of the day, I'd like a better throw there as well. But I'm with you. I won't call it an unacceptable drop, but I would say that's a ball I need you to catch. You know, I need you to come down with that. I agree that he needed to catch that. I wouldn't go as far as to call it unacceptable, but I need you to catch that one. Especially when you got a backup quarterback in the game, you got to help him out. Jim Hoover says, all 40-plus-year-old quarterbacks gone. ASAP. Cloud says, we need a good amount on our team. I think upgrading at certain positions and firing the medical staff could maybe make us put it all together for next season and go further in the postseason. Let's see. Got another super chat from Lurtz of Orthanic. Thank you for the super chat. I appreciate that. Cloud HHC Lunar says, this is why the Texans shouldn't have traded Clowney. I don't know why that Bill O'Brien didn't like Clowney. Again, we're not there. We don't know what the tenor was there, and we don't know what the environment or the climate was in Houston with Clowney, whether they felt like he didn't work hard enough, whether they felt like his production didn't match what he was asking for. Either way, there was no way I was moving on from Jadeveon Clowney if I'm the Houston Texans. They could use him right now as we speak. Now, I said this on the podcast. Jacob Martin is actually really good. And it was funny because when the trade first happened, there were several of you out there that said, hey, look, man, don't sleep on Jacob Martin. And I told every single one of you, get the hell out of my damn face with this Jacob Martin nonsense and tomfoolery. Well, Jacob Martin is actually good. And I see some juice and some bend, and I see some ability out of Jacob Martin. He's not Jadeveon Clowney, though. All right. But he's actually not a bad he's not a bad coup in that trade. You know, receiving him back in exchange, not the worst thing in the world. Kevin says, I'm not worried about the Seahawks. Hashtag go pack go. Well, you should be. All right. And this is not the Green Bay Packers of old that you knew, all right, they're going to score 31. Can the defense stop them from scoring 35 and losing the game? I'm not sure the offense is capable of scoring 24. That this offense is helter-skelter. 1 week, they're firing on all cylinders. The next week, you're like, man, this offense looks disjointed. You should be able to move the football versus Seattle. You should be. We'll see. If you can't protect, if you allow Clowney to wreck shop, it could be a long day. We'll see. Cody _1804 says, my Super Bowl favorite was the Saints. I was so surprised today. So was I. My Super Bowl was Saints Chiefs. So I was shocked when they lost today. Utterly shocked. Lurtz of Orthanic says, of the 4 teams on bye, who's the most scared? Who is chilling? Ravens scared of Derek. Packers facing Marshawn out for unfinished business. So let's analyze that. Great question. The 4 teams that were chilling on bye in the AFC, you've got the Ravens as the number 1 seed, Chiefs as the number 2. In the NFC, you've got the 49ers as the number 1 seed and the Green Bay Packers as the number 2. So the first thing you ask, who's the most scared? Of those 4 teams, who should be the most afraid? I would say of that group, the Kansas City Chiefs should be the most afraid. They didn't think they would have to play the Houston Texans. It's interesting because I thought the Houston Texans were going to lose. I didn't think Buffalo had enough firepower to deal with the Chiefs in Kansas City. If that, and we didn't think that would happen. I didn't think the Titans were going to win. I thought they were capable of winning. I didn't think they were going to win. So I thought the winner of that game was going to have to go to Kansas City. I thought the winner of that game was going to have to go to Baltimore, and the winner of the other game would have to go to, which would be the Patriots, was going to go to New England. I'm not so sure that the Chiefs wouldn't have preferred the New England Patriots over the Houston Texans. Remember, it's the same Texans team that went into Kansas City earlier in the season and won. I think they felt like they had finally slayed the New England Patriots. And seeing what we saw from the Patriots and knowing what we know about them, I feel like the Chiefs felt pretty confident. Hey, I know it's the postseason and it's Brady and Belichick, B&B winning factory, playoff mystique, all of that good stuff. But I think they would have taken their chances with the Patriots with the way their season is gone and the way they're playing ball. This Texans team is dangerous. And they're going to get Will Fuller back next week, which makes them even more dangerous. The reason why I thought they were going to lose is because Will Fuller wasn't playing. And I told you that. And I knew he was a game time decision. I said, even if he plays, he won't be the same Will Fuller. And they were smart to sit him out because now he's going to play next week. Barring a setback, Will Fuller plays, that offense is way more dynamic. It's not even the same offense. It's just ridiculous how night and day that offense difference is with him in the lineup. So I think they're the team that's probably the most on upset alert. Yeah, the Ravens with Derrick Henry coming to town could be a little bit off, still think that Ravens offense is going to be a handful for this Titans defense to deal with too. So I think they're the team that I think is chilling. And I don't know if I would classify any of these teams as chilling. All right. None of these teams are really chilling, but the team that I think looks up and says, not bad, is those same Baltimore Ravens. You got Ryan Tannehill, who just completed 8 passes in a win. You can't think that Derrick Henry is going to, 34 carries, 160 yards rushing. Like, you can't assume that's happening again. I think the Ravens like their draw because, I know that they destroyed the Texans the first time around. I don't think they wanted to see the Bills. I don't think they wanted to see the Texans, honestly speaking. And I really think that this Titans team is a team that they probably feel like they should be able to handle. Now, again, if Derrick Henry is running the football, it could be trouble. But that's the way I see it. I don't really see anybody feeling like they got a pushover. That Minnesota game, that's really interesting. That San Francisco, Minnesota game, that just really got interesting. And Atlanta Fan 21 says, was this the best wild card weekend of this decade? Absolutely. It's the first one of this decade. That was a trick question. You didn't get me, though. The 20th Mike says, what up, Lou? You're right. It would have been a repeat of last year if Dallas had gotten in. I think so. I think they would have beat them just like they beat them in wild card weekend last year. I think they would have beat them again. So I'm glad Dallas didn't get in that's what I told my dad. He's a Cowboys fan. I said, if you guys would have gotten in, you would have beaten Seattle. Gregory Lightbody says, do you think hiring a GM after the draft is good? I'm kind of mixed on that. Look, it's hard to fire your staff right now because they have invested all season into the draft. So you can't fire them now. You bring a GM right now. He may not agree with the staff that's there. It's probably best that you just wait till after the draft. So it probably makes the most sense. The 20th Mike says, sucks that football is starting to end. Felt like yesterday it just started. It always feels that way, especially when you're coming off of a season that has been this good. It just makes it that much more painful. But you got the XFL coming your way, coming into a TV screen near you in February. So I'm not saying, I'm just saying. Cody _ says, I think the Packers could have been one of those perfect spots for DK. Maybe. Maybe. With Rodgers and now seeing what Alan Lazard is doing, maybe DK could have flourished there. There's an outside shot that Aaron would have gotten the most out of him. But you know how demanding Aaron Rodgers is and how guys have to be precise. And I don't know if DK would have been at that particular spot yet. But we'll see. Kyle Little says, who do you see starting for the Saints next year? Breeze, Hill, or Bridgewater? I think they're just going to bring the band back. I think you're going to see Breeze back. I think Bridgewater is going to be allowed to walk. Could be a mistake, especially with Breeze being up there in age. But, I mean, how many times can you keep Teddy from being – Teddy feels like he's a starter, especially after what he did this season. Someone's going to pay Teddy to be a starter. If you're New Orleans, you got a decision to make. And I'm not sure that they don't say to themselves, hey, man, we love Drew. We'd hate for him to finish his career elsewhere, but we don't want to allow Teddy to walk. So they got a decision to make. But as far as I'm concerned, they bring Breeze back, and you can't afford both of them. And so you bring Breeze back. You could franchise Teddy B, but then the cap number and the hit there would just be extraordinary with two quarterbacks. Can't do it. So I think it's still going to be Breeze. But that's a decision that they've got to make. I wouldn't be upset if they said, hey, Breeze, man, it's been really fun, bro. And you bless this organization, but we got to go with Bridgewater. We got to go with the younger option, the cheaper option, the guy that's going to give us a chance moving forward into the future. So we'll see. 20th Mike says, why did the Eagles have a 40-year-old backup quarterback on their roster? Because Nate Sudfeld got hurt early in the season, and that's a guy that they had confidence in, and they had to bring someone in on short notice, and the guy that they felt most comfortable doing that with. Because remember, Sudfeld got hurt like the third preseason game of the year. And at that point, there's nobody available at the quarterback position. You're stuck at that point. So, and then the next guy that they had, I want to say it was one of those old USC quarterbacks like Matt Barkley or something. He got a concussion. Like they were hurting at quarterback. And then you remember Wentz was coming off of an injury himself. So they needed somebody, and ended up being, and I didn't have a problem with the McCown signing. I didn't. I mean, what are you going to get at that point of the year? You're not getting anything. McCown was the best you were going to be able to do. So I didn't have a problem with it. HHC Lunar says, what do you think of Collinsworth saying Brady's to the Chargers on the postgame show? It makes a lot of sense. I mean, we talked about that briefly. We kind of combed over that. I just don't see New England allowing him to walk. That's where I am. But if they have something in mind, and there are going to be a lot of quarterbacks, as I mentioned, out on free agency, I could see Bridgewater being a great fit in New England. I could see Mariota being a great fit in New England. I could even see Andy Dalton going there and being a bridge stopgap for them. Also, remember, they drafted a quarterback last year, and they may actually like him. All right, don't forget, they drafted Jarrett Stidham. They may actually like him and feel like he just needs another year or two to groom, and then we can give him an opportunity to play. I don't see Brady playing anywhere else. But the Chargers make a ton of sense because they're ready to win right now. Like, it doesn't benefit the Chargers to draft a quarterback. Their window of opportunity is shrinking every year in Los Angeles with the Chargers. And when you look at that roster, you say, well, why is that? They got a bunch of young players. It just feels like they need to win here in the next 3 years or so. Really, the next 2 years. They need to win. Well, there's guys out there that can provide you with that, like a Tom Brady, like a Drew Brees. So it makes sense that the Chargers they'll be one of those teams that's connected to all of these veteran quarterbacks. Atlanta fan 21 says, Brees has been bad in back-to-back playoff trips. I don't know, man. He might be done. Don't forget he was playing bad the final 6 weeks or so to end 2018 as well. Much has been made of Drew Brees' postseasons, and rightfully so. He was not great last year. He wasn't good in this game. If you look at his numbers, he actually wasn't that bad. It was the turnovers that were alarming in this game. You know, the interception down the field in double coverage, that's just a bad decision. A bad throw, bad decision. But the fumble is the one that really pisses you off, because in that particular spot, you got a 6'5", 6'4", 265, 270 defender on you. What the hell are you doing, bruh? Eat it. And if I'm not mistaken, that was a first down play. Like, what the hell are you doing, bruh? Seriously. Don't do that. They've got a decision to make on Drew Brees. He's not done. He just hasn't played well in the postseason. Now, keep in mind, 2 years ago, he had them on the precipice of the NFC Championship game, if not for the Minneapolis Miracle. So I don't buy that he's getting, old and he can't do it anymore. I just think the Saints have a decision to make. House says Taysom Hill would have won that game today. Brees is holding that team back with his noodle arm. No, don't do that. Taysom Hill was outstanding today. Taysom Hill is still Taysom Hill, okay? For a reason that they're using him everywhere but quarterback. All right? Pump your brakes. Pump your brakes on Taysom Hill. I love Taysom Hill just as much as the next man. He is not ready to lead the Saints to a 13-3 record. He's not. He's not. All right. Colin Oro says, do you think the Seahawks will beat the Packers? They'll have a chance. I'll have to assess everything. I want to make sure everybody's healthy, who's in, who's out. But they'll have a shot. Betting against Russell Wilson usually isn't a smart proposition. But the Packers at home, this time of the year, they're a pretty safe bet as well. So we'll see. Rafael DeLuna says, so many good games next week. Which one are you most excited for? I'm actually looking forward to every single one of them. There isn't one game that I'm not looking forward to. I think the game that kick off the weekend is going to be fun. 49ers hosting the Vikings. That should be a ton of fun on Saturday afternoon. The one that I'm looking for the most is probably that game. That one. And you know what? Mahomes versus Watson should be fun too. That's going to be a pretty fun game to watch as well. So those are the two. Are those both on Saturday? I know the Packers are the last game of the weekend on Sunday afternoon. I'm trying to think, who is that Sunday 1 o'clock? The Ravens. I think the Chiefs are at 1 o'clock on Sunday. So that would be a good mix. I'd actually prefer it that way. The two games that I'm probably looking forward to the most on separate days. But the game I'm looking forward to the most is probably, I have my selfish reasons, 49ers and the Vikings, because I got family members in there, man. And I'm rooting for both of them. Somebody's got to lose, but I'll be rooting like hell for both of them, ex-family members. Want to see them do well. So, Lords of Orthanic says, great response about the bye teams. Thank you. Good and thorough as always. Appreciate you, bruh. Thank you for the super chat as well. Colin Oro says, oh, okay, he already asked that. Gregory Lightbody says, what happens with Brady and how will the Pats replace him? It's an interesting offseason with a ton of questions. And I said this at the end of their show last night. Ton of questions, not enough answers right now. I think when it's all done and the dust settles, smoke clears, I think he's back in New England. That's just my personal opinion. But if he's not back, as I just mentioned, they're going to go after one of these veterans. They're not looking to draft anyone. And remember, they drafted Jarrett Stidham last year. Now, how do they feel about Jarrett Stidham? I don't know. I do not have the answer to that. I do know this much. They're a team that's ready to win now. That defense is good enough. And if they go out and get some pieces, really they need a tight end. I think that's the one thing that they're missing. If Edelman can continue to, the man had 100 catches this year. If he can continue to play at a high level, you got to think N'Keal Harry and check 1-2-1-2. Guess who? Mohamed Sanu. All of those guys will be better in year 2 in New England's offense. You'd like to think that they'll be a lot better next year if they can, fix some of the positions that weren't all that good for them this year. No, I didn't see Pats fans burning Brady's jersey. Like, are you kidding me? They can't actually really be Patriots fans if they're doing that. That's hard to believe. That's probably someone trolling, acting like a Patriots fan just to get people riled up. I won't fall for the banana in the tailpipe. HHC Lunar says, Garoppolo trade might have been to jump the shark moment for New England. Well, remember, they wanted Kyle Shanahan. Kyle Shanahan wanted Kirk Cousins. And that didn't happen. And New England, remember, there was reports about Brady being upset with the presence of Jimmy Garoppolo in the organization. And that Belichick wanted Garoppolo, and he wanted to move on from Brady. And the owner stepped in, Robert Kraft, and said, hell no, we're not getting rid of Brady. Matter of fact, trade Jimmy Garoppolo. Get his ass out of here. Brady's not comfortable with him being here. Now, they refuted that. I believe it. I believe that happened. I believe that was a real thing. And so look, Belichick did what he and remember this, and I talked about this on the podcast a long time ago. But remember, and I actually did a show on this. I actually did a video on this. I think it was called something like Trouble in Paradise, something like that. Anyway, remember, Belichick picked up the phone and called Kyle Shanahan. It wasn't the other way around. So Belichick approached Shanahan about Jimmy Garoppolo. So that tells you all you need to know. Anyway, that's going to do it for this breakdown. Valiant effort by the Philadelphia Eagles, but they were undermanned. And then when Wentz got injured, that was pretty much the final nail in the coffin. Seahawks win the game 17-9, advance to the divisional round. Well, they'll travel to Lambeau to take on the Green Bay Packers. That should be fun. We've seen some really epic contests between these two teams in the past. Hopefully, they will add another to the storied history between these two teams. Meanwhile, in the earlier game, the Minnesota Vikings shock everyone, go into New Orleans, and take down the Saints 26-20 in overtime, which has set up a matchup between the Vikings and the 49ers. That one should be pretty damn good as well. I'm your man, Louis T, signing off. If it's not your man, T, it's not the best NFL coverage it could be. Until next time, you guys enjoy yourselves. Make sure you like the video. Make sure you subscribe to the Louis T Network if you haven't already done so. And also, make sure you check out the Louis T Network podcast. Greatly appreciate it. And also, if you can donate, please do so via Super Chat. Thank you so much for all the Super Chats that I got tonight. If you can donate via PayPal, that's down in the description. If you can donate via Cash App, it's Cash App, the $ Louis T Network. All right, so thank you guys so much for the support. What an excellent weekend of football. We'll reconvene next week. You'll have a podcast coming. Redskins fans, I'll see you during the week. And we're gonna start this draft process here shortly as well. So be on the lookout for that as well. I'm your man, Louis T, signing off. You guys have a blessed rest of the night. Take care. Have a good one. Louis T.